Hello friends, welcome to Coding Garden with CJ. In this video, we're going to build a to-do app with Vue 3. We're just getting started. This is my break timer. If you've been watching YouTube all day, feel free to stand up, take a quick stretch, and we're going to get into it. So we are going to be using vue.js 3.0. Now today is September 21st, 2020, and vue.js 3.0 has been released, but the ecosystem is still working on things. So the Vue router, Vuex, some of the associated plugins and tools are still all in beta. So they're not completely ready for Vue 3 yet, but Vue 3 is usable. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to build a super basic to-do app using Vue 3 and the composition API. So this is one of the biggest changes in Vue 3. One of the things that I like about Vue 3, it's very similar to like hooks in React. But that's what we're going to use to build this app. And I will mention, if you look at my YouTube channel, which I guess you're doing right now, there's a build a to-do app video. If you search for Coding Garden Vue to do, there's a video, this one. This uses Vue.js 2.0. We're going to build the exact same app, but we're going to use Vue.js 3.0. Let's get into it. Let's go. So what I've already done is I've already generated an application. And what I needed to do for that was run Vue create to-do app. So this runs the Vue CLI. Make sure you have at least version 4.5. I think I have version 4.6. And then you choose Vue 3 preview. I've already done that. We have our app running, and what I've also already done is I have ripped out all of the existing components and all of the existing styles. We just have a basic app that says Vue 3 to-do app, and then we have our checklist right here. Let's get into it. So first thing I need is a form for creating new to-dos, and for this video, I'm just going to put everything in a single component. It could be a separate video where we start to break things out into separate components, and we have props. For now, we're just demonstrating the basics of Vue here. So I need a form. I'm going to add a form right here. We're going to need an input that says, well, no, we have an input, and that input will have a label. I can code. Yes, I can code. It just says like new to do, like this. And then we'll have a button that says add new to do. All right, let's see what this gives us. Here, so we have a label, we have an input. I want to be able to say my to-do is to learn Vue 3. When I click add new to-do, that should add it to a list of items here. So we have our basic form, that's great. While we're here, let's go ahead and give this thing a name. So we'll name this new to-do. Should be good. Yeah, that's good. Form, done, check mark. All right, call a function when the form is submitted. Now, in Vue.js, you can add event listeners to elements. Now, the one way to do it is with v-on, and then you can specify any DOM event, but a shorthand for that is the @ sign. So if you do the @ sign, you can specify any event, and then you can specify a function that will get called. So I care about the submit event, and when that is called, I want to call a function that is something like add new to do, right? Okay, so we need this function add new to do. Now, one of the newest things in Vue.js 3 is the composition API, and for that, instead of having options on your object, so instead of having your data and your methods and your computed, so this is known as like object options, right? You have a bunch of properties. Each of those things defines the parts and pieces of your component. With the composition API, you have a single function called setup, and you do all of the stuff that you want inside of there. So let's say I want to have a function called add new to do. And for now, I'm just going to log form was submitted, right? So I have this function, and when the form is submitted, I want to call that function. So what we do from setup is we return an object, and whatever properties are on this object become available inside of the template. So because we want this add new to do function, and we've defined it here, we're just going to return it like this. And now what that does is it makes this function available inside of the template. So whenever this form is submitted, this function is going to get called, right? So let's see what happens. Let's open up the console. We'll say, hi, mom, add new to do. The page refreshed. Does anybody know why the page refreshed? Well, thank you, Ace. I appreciate you. Prevent default. Yeah, we got to prevent the default action. And one thing I'll show you is Vue has a nice little helper for doing that. So all I got to do is just say .prevent, and it automatically prevents the default action. I don't have to access the event and say event.prevent default. I can just say .prevent. There's a few other helpers like that as well. So now that we're preventing the default action, we should see form was submitted. Woohoo! Yeah. Okay, so hi, mom. Add new to do. Form was submitted. Great. So we're calling a function when the form is submitted. Beautiful. Great job, vue.js. Now, we want to keep track of what the user has typed into the input. And for this, we're going to use what's known as a ref. So we need some sort of reactive variable, right? We need to keep track of what the user has typed in that input. And for that, we'll use a ref. So this is new in Vue.js 3. I'll say import ref from Vue. Now, the cool thing about this is that this is actually reusable outside of Vue.js. This is just a nice little function for creating properties or variables or objects that can basically respond to change, and you can know when those things are changed. But we need a ref for new to do. So I'll say new to do is a ref that starts off as an empty string, right? So this is kind of like having a new to do property on our data that is initialized to an empty string. I'm going to expose new to do to the template by putting it in the object here. And now I'm going to bind the user input to that specific variable. And to do that, I use the vmodel directive. So on the input, I can say v-model equals new to do. And so vmodel is provided by Vue.js, and whatever is here corresponds to something on our component or on our data, basically. And so what this automatically does is it adds a change listener to the input. When the input receives a change event, it's going to update this ref behind the scenes, and we're going to see that latest value displayed. Now, this is not actually two-way data binding. It looks like it. It's a one-way data binding in disguise. Under the hood, it does exactly what you would do in React, where you add an event listener, and then in that event listener, you update state. It's just syntactic sugar. It's still one-way data binding. Cool. So we have the string. Let's make sure that it's actually working. So now that we have vmodel there, it's listening for changes, so we can actually expose that. So if I put a little h2 and I put new to do right here, because this input is bound to this property here, and this property is a ref, this is a reactive property, we should see the latest value there. So let's do it. So if I say hello world, wow, this is so cool. You can see that h2 is reflecting the latest value that we've put in there. Wow. Actually, should I turn on some effects? Wow. No, the effects are off. Or are they? Effects on. Here. Wow. Okay, that's enough of that. So you can see that it's automatically bound. Great. We actually don't care about this. I just wanted to show you that by putting vmodel here, it automatically updates that thing behind the scenes. Great. So we did that. All right, now log the user input when the form is submitted. So right now we're just saying in our submitted function, we're saying form was submitted. But let's say I want to show what the user actually typed into that box. And in this case, we're going to log new to do dot value. And this is actually extremely relevant to what Frapar just asked. So is ref the object or the value in the case of a string? So that's why for like primitive types, that's why we have this wrapper. And that's why I have to say dot value. Because, as you know, in JavaScript, strings are immutable, right? So if you want to change a string, you just have to create a new string and overwrite whatever is inside of a variable. You can't actually modify the string itself. So whenever you create a ref, this is an object wrapper, and it has a property on it called value, and that is what the latest value is. And so some people don't like this because it's a little bit different from Vue.js or from Vue 2, where you can just directly modify those properties. In this case, if I want to change it, I do have to set new to do dot value equals some other thing. Yeah. Okay, so that should be fine. And basically, whenever I submit the form, we should see whatever the user typed into the form logged to the console. So if I say learn vue3, click add new to do, there it is. New to do.value has the latest value. So that's great. We have access to it. Now we want to keep track of all the to-dos. Great. I'll say this, if you're interested in creating basically an object that has multiple properties on it and you don't want to use a ref, because technically even if you put an object in here, you would still have to say .value. We showed earlier, you also have access to this thing called reactive. And reactive is kind of similar to setting up your data. You could do something like data is reactive with an object. And here we could say new to do is an empty string. Here we could say to-dos is an array. And now that we have this reactive wrapper, I could say data.newToDo equals a thing, or data.todos.push, and it would work. I wouldn't have to use .value. But for now, we're just going to use refs because they're simple, easy, all that good stuff. Yeah, and so that's the other thing that I like about the composition API is you don't have to worry about this. I mean, even so, in vue.js, it automatically binds your methods for you, so this is usually what you expect it to be. But in the composition API, you don't even have to worry about that. There is no this, because it's basically whatever is accessible inside of that scope, that's what you modify and change. All right, what were we going to do? Create an array. Yeah. So we now need an array of to-dos, and I'm just gonna create another ref. So I'm gonna say to-dos is a ref that starts off as an empty array, just like that. And then I want to make those to-dos available inside of my template. So I'm going to return it right here, like that. And what else does it create an array? Yeah, we did that. Great. So this is how I create a reactive array. We're now going to push a new to-do into the array whenever we say add new to-do. So instead of just logging it, we're going to say to-dos.value.push. And we're going to push in an object where done is initially false. And we have a property on it. I guess we can call it content. The content or the value is new to do.value. So what we're doing is when that function is called, it just pushes an object into the array. Like I mentioned, we do have to use .value here. Maybe after this video, I'll use reactive and I'll show you how we would do it with reactive. You wouldn't have to use .value. You could just use your state, etc. This is fine. This is fine. So we push it into the array. That's great. Now we want to show that array on the page, that list of items. So we've pushed it in. Done is false. Now we actually want to show the list. And this is where we use the v4 directive. So I'm going to add a little div right here. And basically, I want to repeat this div for every item in the to-dos array. And this is where we use v4. v4 will say item in, well, we can say to-do in to-dos. So this is going to repeat this element for every to-do in the to-dos array. And to-dos, like we showed, was exposed on our data here. So it should work. Let's say we just have like an h3 that has to-do.content. So to show the content, we need handlebars. And we'll say to-do.content. And then we also need some sort of key here. My editor is complaining because I don't have a key set. Let's actually just add an ID. And we're going to set this to date.now. Now, in the real world, you wouldn't do this. Your IDs would probably come from a database. They would be unique. This is going to be unique enough because I'm the only one using this, and the date should be unique when I add an item. But just know that this needs to be a unique value. So right here, I'll say key equals to-do.id. And to actually pass that value down, I need to bind it. So if the syntax for that is vbind, like that, but you can leave off vbind and just put the colon. Now, yes, and for part has another good question. With the composition API, inside of the template, do I have to say .value? You don't. So you can see that here, I can just say new to do. I don't have to say new to do .value. And then here, I can just say to do's. So the render function here, and that's basically what this is, even though it looks like HTML, this actually gets compiled into a component render function. The render function knows that it needs to access .value in order to iterate over it, but you can leave that off. Here's another quick stretch. And we're almost done. We're kind of home free. So this should show all of the to-dos. And actually, I don't know why I did this, but this should be a list item, right? We have a list of to-dos, and we should put this in an unordered list. Here we go. This is better. I like this better. We have a list, and then we're repeating a list item for every item. All right. So if I say learn view 3, and I submit it, boom, it's in the list. Now, I'm asking you the viewer, how can I clear this form, right? So right now it says learn view 3. I clicked add, but it's still there. Typically a good user experience is to clear it. How do I clear it? How do I do that? Any guesses? Form.reset. That probably would do it. I don't have a reference to the form though. You the viewer, clean the very nice form 1, 2, 3. Right, so let's think about this. Not to-dos.value. So to-dos is the list. What we want to clear is what's bound to the input. So because the input is bound to new to do, yeah, Limeotes has it. So because this is bound to new to do, if I say new to do.value equals an empty string, that'll clear it out. So push it into the array and then say new to do.value equals nothing. And because the input is bound to new to do, the input should clear. So let's clear this. Yeah, you all got it. You got it. And then I'll say learn view 3. Boom, input cleared. Well, that's awesome. You absolutely could add like an element reference and do form clear, but yeah, we're not. We're doing it the view way in this case. We're modifying the thing that we're bound to. So that's great. Let's look at our to-do list. Yeah, so we're showing the to-dos. Check done on a to-do to mark it as done. Awesome. Okay. Now things are going to get a little more complex. So we can show many things. We could say like, learn the composition API. We'll add it. Learn JavaScript. Not necessarily in this order, but what I want is whenever I click on an item, I want to put a line through it so that way we show that that thing is done. And we can see that every to-do has a property called done, which is initially false. So here's what we want. When we click the item, so actually when we click the text itself, so I'll say when this text is clicked, we'll say we'll say toggle done. And we want to toggle done that specific to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just pass in this to do to this function toggle done. And you'll notice that I'm not creating an arrow function. There's no sort of like closure scope or anything like that. I literally say I have a function called toggle done, and I'm passing in this specific to do that I clicked on to that function called toggle done. So now I need a function toggle done in my component that takes in a to do, and we just toggle it. So we'll say to do dot done equals not to do dot done. Great. And then now we need to expose this function toggle done to the template, and that should do it. So I'll save that. We'll say learn view 3. We'll add it, and you can't see it, but I'm pretty sure it's working. But to actually show that it's working, I'm gonna do some bound CSS, some bound styles. Do I have that in my to do? How do you make brain go fast? Show a line through the to do. So we're marking it as done, but we need to reflect that in the UI. And for that, we're going to use we could use a style bind, or actually no, we'll use a class binding. So let's say I have a class called done, and dot done. Yeah, that's how CSS works. Whew. So I have a class called done, and then we're just going to do text decoration as line through, like that. MB dealer, thank you for the 1,000 bits. That's a lot of bits. I appreciate you. Yeah, so if the element has the class done, then it's going to have a line through it. And so now we can just bind that. So I can do colon class and then pass in an object. So the way class bindings work is you specify the names of the class that you'd like to apply to this element. So in this case, I want to apply the done class to that element. So I want to say done. But I only want to apply that class if to-do.done is true. So I specify the name of the class I want to apply is done, and then I can specify an expression that if that expression evaluates to true, add that class to the element. So I'll just say to-do.done. Like that. So if to-do.done is true, apply the done class to this element. And look at that. It works. And I can click it all day long. Boom, boom, boom. Or I can add new things. Learn the composition API. Wow. And we can also mark those done too. I mean, technically, I should show like a cursor. So if I give this a class of to-do, let's say to-do has a cursor, a pointer. That way the user knows that they can click on it like that. This code rocks says this is experimental. Let's take a look. Yes, we showed this earlier. I'm not going to get into this just because it potentially is confusing, but let it be known that there's actually an even cleaner. there's another way of using the composition API in that setup function with this, but we're not going to get into it because we were using it earlier. There's some caveats to it. But okay, so we can mark things done. That's great. Isn't that great? Isn't that great? Yeah, and so it's adding and removing the class. We can look in the DOM inspector to actually see what happens. So you can see that right now, this h3 has a class of done, but if I click on it, it removes that class. So basically that object that we specified, if done evaluates to true, apply the class called done. That's basically what's happening there. It's great. It's great, isn't it? So this says, if this, and so this can be any valid expression on the inside of this object. So this could be a function call, this could be multiple ands and ors, but if this expression evaluates to true, then done, the done class gets applied to that element. Great. So that's awesome. And then let's delete to-dos. So inside of here, I want a little button that says, not a butt, demonetize. I want a button that says remove to-do. And so when I click that button, it should remove the to-do from the array. And let's do this. So very similar to whenever we toggle the thing, we want to say when this button is clicked, we want to remove to do with to do. Now, technically, I could pass in the to do, but probably what is easier is to pass in the index, because if I pass in the index, then I can just splice it from the array. Good job. So I'm actually gonna I'm gonna get access to the index here inside of this v4, and the way you do that is by saying the element comma index. And now that I have the index, I can pass in the index, and then we'll use that. So now I need a function called remove to do. That's just going to go right here. Remove to do gets access to the index, and then we just modify the array. So we'll say todos.value slice. Return a section of the array, splice, remove an element from the array. So we want splice. So we want to splice that specific index, and we want to splice one of them. So this function will now remove one specific element at that index, and we should be good to go. Now, if you're coming from the React world, you're probably used to immutable state, right? And for a remove, you probably would have done a filter. Technically, we could do that. We could do a filter, but there's no need because to-dos is reactive. The template knows whenever it changes. So if we push into it, if we remove from it, the template is automatically going to update. So that should handle that. So we'll say learn vue3, learn the composition API, and we'll say build a to-do app. All right. So I can mark them done. I can unmark them done. That's great. Can I remove it? Yes, I can. And that works just fine. Awesome. So I think that's it. I think that's it for our basic to-do app. Oh, one more thing. Add a button to mark all to-dos as done. So let's do that. So we need a button probably right here that just says like mark all done. And then when we click this, we need to call a function that's like mark all done. And then that function should mark all of them as done. So let's do that here. And to do that, we just need to iterate over the to-do. So I'll say todos.value.forEach. So for every element in that array, we're going to get the to-do. And we're going to say to-do.done equals true. So we literally just iterate over the array and modify every element to set it to true. And that should do it. And then we'll just make this function available in the template, like that. So we say learn view, add it. I have all of these autocompletes. Learn React, sure, why not? You can learn all the things. Learn the composition API, great. But if I say mark all done, then it now marks them all as done. Awesome. Username unknown is saying, can you do method definitions instead of a standard function? Specifically with the composition API and setup. No, because basically what you need to do is you return an object, and whatever is on that object gets exposed inside of the function, the component itself. Now, could we technically create a methods option? And does this get merged? I actually have no idea, and I don't think I'd recommend it. I would say if you're going to use the composition API, stick to that. Don't try to use the older Vue.2 stuff. You still can, but yeah. We could add remove all to-dos. It actually is very, very simple. We just set the array to empty. So we'll say remove all. Remove all. This is bonus. This is not in the to-do list. Get bonus content for watching the video this long. Remove all to-dos. Remove only done to-dos. This is feature creep in a nutshell. But we'll do this one. Remove all. And remove all is simple enough. We literally just reset the array to be nothing. Bonus content! But this is where we'll say todos.value equals nothing. Just reset it to an empty array, and that will just wipe them all out. So we'll expose this, and it should be good. So we'll say hello world. How are you? Wow. And then we'll say remove all, and it just removes them all. Awesome. This is great. Todos.length equals 0. Would that work too? Todos.value.length? Can you clear an array by setting its length to 0? Let's see. Does this work? Yeah, that's another way to do it. I like doing this though. I like doing that. All right, I think that's it. This is a super basic introduction to Vue.js 3 and the composition API. This idea of creating reactive values, this idea of creating functions, and then this idea of exposing functions and reactive values to your template, and then using those things inside of your template. We also showed like class bindings and a few other things. Now, I will say there is a lot more to the composition API. I'm just showing it in a very small, very simple application. The composition API itself really starts to shine when you have a larger app with more functionality that needs to be shared between components and different things like that. But that's for a future video. This is just basic Vue 3 composition API stuff. Yeah, and so that's the other things I didn't get into. Computed properties, watching properties. I'll tell you that behind Vue is also these functions called like computed. So if I wanted to create a computed property, I would use just this little function here. If I wanted to watch something, I could use that little function there. So basically all of the ways you're used to creating things as options on a component, you could use these functions instead. Yeah, and so ref is very similar. Yeah, so that's Red Cullen just mentioned. Ref is very similar to useState, but it's better. This isn't a video comparing it to React, but I'll tell you this: refs, they can be defined in any order. They can be conditional in React. They can't be. I'm not going to get into that, but yes, this is very similar to useState, but better. All right, that's it. That's all. Thank you for watching this video, which was a basic introduction to Vue.js 3 and the composition API. But like I said, there's a whole lot more. There's a whole lot more to come. Watch my channel. There'll be more videos, all that good stuff. Bye, YouTube. Everyone say bye to YouTube. Thank you for tuning in. And join us here on Twitch, where we have fun. We have fun like this. Bye, YouTube. Content. All right. See you later. This is the part of the video where a suggested video pops up, and then the subscribe button pops up too. Bye. Bye, YouTube. Love you.